And without further ado, I will pass the microphone to Marc.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation and the possibility to talk to you today. I've been working on this issue I will be talking about for the last years and still working on a new article, so I'll be happy to get feedback on my paper. Pro-Israelism and anti-Semitism within Germany's right-wing populist AfD is my topic, and you might ask yourself, why focus the opposition party? Well, I believe that it's necessary to look at the AfD because it's the strongest opposition party, gaining 12.6% of the popular vote, and for the very stable German party system that is very unusual. So the German party system was for decades a three-party system, Social Democrats, Conservatives, Liberals, and it was the Green Party that made it into parliament in the 80s, and the Socialist Party that made it into parliament after German reunification. So now there is the AfD in national parliament. And I will focus on a specific aspect, and it's the positions that the party holds towards Jews and Israel. And I will focus the party, not the supporters of the party, because we have empirical research on supporters of the party, and we already know that the party is attractive for anti-Semites. The results of the Allensbach Institute show that the judgments on Jews among supporters of the AfD are significantly more negative than among supporters of other parties. Confronted with the statement, Jews have too much influence in the world, 16% of the supporters of the Social Democratic Party and 20% of supporters of the Socialist Party agree to the statement. Only the supporters of the AfD were completely out of line. 55% of them said that Jews have too much influence in the world. So in the following I will show that it is not just by accident that the party is attractive for anti-Semites. I will first shortly outline the folkish ideology of the party right around Björn Höcke, who is representative of the right wing of the party. Then I will go into how the AfD challenges Germany's politics of memory politics. And then finally I will talk about those positions like pro-Jewish, pro-Israel positions within the party that is not really new if you look a bit at right-wing populist parties in Europe. So first about the right wing of the party. The AfD has slowly radicalized and shifted towards the right, one of its obvious results being that after the party founder Bernd Lucke lost an internal power struggle against Frauke Petri, Lucke and several hundred members left the party. Also, and in addition, the party was excluded from the group of European conservatives and reformists in the European Parliament. Today it can be estimated that around 40% of the party may be considered supporters of the right wing of the party. When I started making presentations on this issue, so that was 2014, it was still necessary to prove and go into detail and show how the party enables right-wing extremism. I think this is not really so relevant anymore because even here, in the United States, you read about it if you want to read about it, so it's in the newspaper. So what I will do is I will focus a case in which I believe the party supports anti-Semitism even so they don't mention Jews. It is Björn Höcke of Thuringia who exerts a decisive influence on the content and strategic orientation of the party right. He is the enfant terrible of the AfD who violates established standards of civility on a regular basis and thereby draws the attention of the media and pushes the boundaries of what can be said. Höcke referred to Christianity and Judaism as being antagonistic, and it was Höcke who defended Ursula Haferbeck, a 88-year-old Holocaust denier, criticizing that she was convicted for opinion crimes. Now an example of how social images may evoke anti-Semitism without explicitly mentioning Jews or Judaism. And I will quote from a speech from Björn Höcke at a rally in Gera in the east of Germany in 2015, and you will recognize what he is talking about. He says, "I don't want to nourish conspiracy theories, but there is a core of truth to be found in some conspiracy theory. And so I have the suspicion that the streams of refugees that are now pouring into our country and Europe may be used as a weapon of migration to achieve something that can be called destabilization of Europe, dear friends. and we can only guess what is the role played by Miss Merkel. In my view, there are actually only two options. The first possibility is Miss Merkel lost her mind. And the second possibility is that she is privy to a big geopolitical plan and is willingly executing that plan. Quote end. So in Höcke's narrative, The Great Replacement, the German Chancellor is part of a plan, so the part of the plan, and that's the important thing, is not her own plan, but she has people in the background, in the dark, who are pulling the strings. And the people who act in the dark, in the secret, pull the strings in the background and have great geopolitical plans and who want to destabilize Europe. And this metaphor of people pulling the strings in the back to destabilize the lives of regular and good people is closely connected to anti-Semitic images, and therefore Höcke did not need to name them. It was understood who he was talking about. And as absurd as the story told by Höcke might be, as powerful it is. The idea that there is a great replacement in which white populations of Europe or the West should be replaced is not only one of the most influential narratives of the right-wing populists and right-wing extremists in Germany or Europe, but also in the United States. And the narrative suggests action against two groups. On the one hand, against the so-called invaders themselves, who in the context of this conspiracy theory are the Muslims. And it is this understanding that motivated the shooter of Christchurch to kill 50 people in a mosque. The other group that gets into focus is the Jews. Now you will remember that during the march of members of the alt-right in Charlottesville in August 2017, the participants chanted a slogan. It said, "You will not replace us," and the other slogan was, "Jews will not replace us." Now some people were wondering what they actually meant. The slogan allows for two interpretation. What they meant was, "Jews will not replace us with migrants." So with the massacre of 11 Jews in the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh, the slogan once again came into the public eye. For the shooter, the narrative of the population exchange initiated by Jews was both the motivation and legitimation for his action. According to his self-image, he murdered Jews to prevent them from replacing the white, non-Jewish American population with migrants. So let me get back to Höcke. What is important is that Höcke does not talk about Jews directly, but the idea that politics is not the result of a struggle of ideas, but the conspiracy of a few, evokes anti-Semitism. And as I tried to show, if you go and search for that on the internet, it immediately is connected to anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. The second issue is memory politics. 6 years after the founding of the AfD, it can be concluded that it is the only party represented in national parliament that rejects the consensus on memory politics, which gives a central role to remembrance of the collective murder of the European Jewry. As early as 2014, the state election program of the AfD in Saxony called for a revaluation and reweighting of history education. Similarly, the election program in Saxony-Anhalt called for a move away from the one-sided concentration on the unlucky years of our history. Now, since May 2016, the AfD also has a party program, and in the party program they are pretty clear about what is their goal. It's, quote, "The current narrowing of German culture of remembrance to the time of National Socialism must be broken up in favor of an expanded view of history, which also includes the positive aspects of German history that create identity." Quote end. The assertion that no other events of the Holocaust is commemorated, is remembered, is a legend. This is both evident if you look at public holidays and the hundreds of memorials that you find in Germany that commemorate, among others, the German soldiers killed in action in both world wars. However, it is characteristic for what in German is called Erinnerungsabwehr, which means avoiding to speak about the history as it was, and by that minimizing the Holocaust. The AfD is pushing for a change in memory politics that should make it possible again to, and now I quote the chair of the party, to be proud of the achievements of German soldiers in 2 world wars. as Alexander Gauland said. So the memory of the Holocaust is then, of course, a disruptive factor, and therefore it was the AfD's policy to shift the focus from the Holocaust towards more positive aspects of German history. And I believe that the fact that none of the relevant representatives of the party reacted to Holocaust Memorial Day in 2017, not even on social media, which plays a big role for them, and they constantly tweet on whatever topic, tells us a lot. Or maybe not, because the recent development shows us that maybe they're moving away from this position, which brings me to the third aspect: Jewish, pro-Jewish and pro-Israel positions within the AfD. So how has the AfD changed its position to official memorial politics? Instead of claiming that Germans need to focus on the more positive aspects of their history, the party now claims to be the only party to draw the appropriate consequences from the Holocaust. And the first act of display was a speech of Charlotte Knoblauch, and I'm pretty sure you might have heard about it, who was the vice president of the European Jewish Congress, and she spoke in the Bavarian parliament on Holocaust Memorial Day. Knoblauch is among the outspoken critics of the party. So during a speech in the parliament, the AfD group left the parliamentary hall when Knoblauch stated that the AfD stood for hatred and exclusion, and the AfD's politics were violating Germany's constitution. Knoblauch's critique was hardly a surprise, and it can therefore be assumed that the AfD had planned to walk out on her. It was then that the JAFD, the Juden in the AfD, Jews within the AfD, which was founded in October 2018, was the first to accuse Knoblauch of instrumentalizing the memory of the Holocaust. Jews in the AfD strongly criticized Knoblauch for her speech in the parliament, and I will read from something that they put on their blog. It says, "The entire Federal Association of Jews in the AfD is deeply shocked by the enormously unscrupulous behavior of Charlotte Knoblauch, who, and let me say it directly, trampled on the countless graves of the dead Jews in the name of today's mainstream agenda. At the time, you," meaning Charlotte Knoblauch, "have directly supported the policy of Islamic, Islamist and Islamofascist immigration by the governing parties." Quote end. The statement of the Jews in the AfD was then shared by AfD parliamentarians on the internet and was supposed to prove that walking out on Knoblauch during her speech was in fact appropriate because she was instrumentalizing the Holocaust in the fight against the AfD. It remains to be seen whether it will become the standard that Jews in the AfD criticize the established Jewish associations and relevant parties, and the AfD then acts under this, I would call it, a protective shield. The Jewish organizations in Germany have seen this coming. For this reason, some 40 Jewish organizations in Germany, from the Central Council I got water. And for this reason, some 40 organizations in Germany, so from the very important Jewish Council, Central Council of Jews in Germany, to Association of Orthodox Jew and Women's Organizations, have published a joint statement titled, and I'm going to read the statement, parts of the statement. "No alternative for Jews. The AfD is anti-democratic and in large parts right-wing extremist. The AfD is a racist and anti-Semitic party. The AfD agitates openly against Muslims and other minorities in Germany. The AfD tries to portray the Muslims as enemies of the Western world or the Jews. Muslims are not the enemies of the Jews. The enemies of all Democrats in this country are extremists, whether out of right-wing extremist, left-wing radical, or radical Muslim sentiment. We will not be instrumentalized by the AfD." Now, when I talk about this topic in Germany, I normally quote from an article that Michael Brenner, professor for Jewish studies in Munich, had published on this issue in already early 2015. Brenner pointed out that it was the Jewish organizations who had welcomed the refugees and supported programs for an integration of refugees. At the same time, a lot of members of the Jewish communities were concerned that the refugees might bring anti-Semitism in the country. And Brenner asked, will French conditions soon prevail in Germany? Will the Jews leave the country out of fear of attacks by radicalized Muslims? I think that asking those questions is legitimate because we have the empirical results that show Muslims are more anti-Semitic than other groups. So, but the question is, how do we answer the problem? One answer would be to put effort and money into educational programs. The AfD's answer is to close the borders. And if you don't agree with them, you are a Gutmensch, which means in their wording, a naive idiot. The reason that most Jews in Germany that I talk to reject the AfD is that they know that now the AfD agitates against Muslims, but this creates an atmosphere in public debate in which also anti-Semitism can easier be articulated. So what about the pro-Israel statements of the party? Probably on advice of the Freedom Party of Austria, the then co-chairwoman Frauke Petri and her husband Marcus Pretzel had begun to position the party, and that was at the beginning in 2014, against anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. And in a longer interview that Petri gave, she put the pro-Israel statement she made in a wider context. And she said, and especially in the field of security policy, Israel has shown that despite massive hostility from the Islamic world, it has been able to maintain the state for decades. And this is only possible with a militant democracy. In Germany, people like to talk about this, but then they open the borders. They can imagine what will happen if Israel no longer carries out border controls. The country would be finished within weeks. So comparing the German and the Israel security situation is far from reality, but it serves a purpose. It is supposed to justify Petri's own anti-immigration position through the positive reference to the Jewish state. And Muslim anti-Semitism played a huge role in this argument. The criticism of anti-Semitism is directed exclusively at anti-Semitism among Muslims. So, for the AfD, positive reference to Israel and Judaism are driven by the hope that it will immunize the party's position. Moreover, they try to distance themselves from the radical right and make it possible for voters in this political center to vote for the AfD. The struggle within the party over the position towards Jews and Israel did not come to an end, but I predict that for now, the pro-Israel positions of the AfD don't play a relevant role anymore. Why? Because they now have the organization of Jews within the AfD. So where will the party go from here? I predict that the AfD will keep on mobilizing against Muslims, claiming to do so also because they need to protect the German Jews from imported anti-Semitism. Having the Jews in the AfD as a party organization is of great value, because the understanding of a lot of people is that the party is a party of the middle and cannot be anti-Semitic because they have Jewish members. The AfD is neither a party with an anti-Semitic agenda nor with a pro-Israel agenda. It is everything. Different positions towards Israel, Judaism, and anti-Semitism coexist peacefully within the party, and the party is clever enough to argue that allowing diverse positions within the party, and also anti-Semitic, is an expression of a pluralistic society. Thank you. Thank you very much.